Hi there, everybody. My name is Kate, and welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. So we're in Colorado Springs, rolling with the homies. They're doing a whole lot of pavement work. So I have some things I was going to do when I got home to make a video, but we're making them now instead because it's taken longer than I thought it would. So what I want to bring to you today is something that was so beautiful that I just wanted to share, that sometimes we find inspiration and we find magical things in the most bizarre places, or in places where we wouldn't necessarily think it would be, or we don't think that something is a blessing necessarily, or we don't understand what this means to me is different than it means to somebody else, or in a very different way. I was working with a brand new client today, and she wanted to do some somatic healing with horses, and so I did not interview her. I had never met her. I didn't do an intake. I didn't know anything about her. And rather than spend a whole lot of time asking about her, history, etc., she was very anxious to see the horses and to, work directly with the horses. And she expressed that. So rather than take up a lot of time, doing the why are you here thing, I know why you're here. You'd like to be near horses. So, I'm an adaptable creature, man. I don't know much about you, but let's see, let's get this conversation started. And this beautiful woman was just such a great reminder that this woman was so taken. She felt so grateful for the opportunity to stand next to a horse. She'd ridden a horse before in a, riding thing that was highly structured, etc. But these engagements are about meeting the heart of the horse and speaking and communicating at the heart level, and having a sentient moment with another creature that has a heart that's really big. And when you hug them and hold them, they entrain with us in a way that it's so soothing and so comforting. Their heart is big. It beats very slow in comparison to ours. And there's just something very grounding and very much soothing about their presence for many people. That's one of the reasons they're such great healers in the mental health community and the spiritual community and the healing journey. So anyway, what I noticed that was just so fascinating to me is that something that I take for granted, which is to see a horse on a regular basis. I work with them. This woman was so grateful, and she said that she looked at one of the horses and she said, I'm just so grateful that he's allowing me, into his space. And that said so much to me that in that moment, I could barely take it all in, that here's this woman who's grateful for the opportunity to be with one of these horses, and doing her session and engaging with them. They're all very kind gentlemen. They're very, very lovely, and they're very, exacting healers. They know exactly when to walk in and exactly when to walk out. They do so much on their own intuitively, and I was just watching her unfolding with them. And the fact that she had not been able to be near a horse was a milestone that for her was a really big deal. And it reminded me of when I was able to, as a grown woman in my 30s, is when I got my horse, the only horse I ever owned, and I do not have him anymore, unfortunately. But it reminded me of that joy and that wonder that I felt standing next to a horse for the first time, because I'm not one of those girls that grew up, with horses and the whole idea of ponies, etc. That wasn't in my world. We didn't have horses in Florida where I was from. We had the beach, so I didn't even know anybody that, did anything farm-like when we were beaching it. So anyway, it was just fascinating to me that it reminded me so much of that joy and that wonder of, wow, these are incredible creatures, and how kind of lazy we can get, and very familiar with these beautiful, wonderful creatures in our life, whether they be, our dog, our cat, our horse, our pal, or even more profound, a human. I take for granted that I see these beautiful souls, but I work with them, and so I'm feeling their magic, and seeing it. So I have an opportunity to really remember our relationship very differently, and I have a great respect for them. However, this woman is having this profound experience, and she is expressing such gratitude that it humbled me in the fact that I'm here, regularly seeing these guys, and I don't think anything of just scratching their neck, giving a hug, etc. And that is a commodity that is not available to everybody. That is true of many things. However, it just so happened that for this woman, an hour in the presence of a horse was life-changing for her, just to hit that milestone for her own personal reasons. And whatever the other epiphanies were, and the insights that she had, those were also hers to take and enjoy them very much so deep into the heart of her being. However, expressing that gratitude and just seeing the joy of someone realizing a dream, realizing something that, she had no way of knowing, that she would come across the ability to one day be able to work with a horse in a way that didn't involve riding, didn't involve, this, that, or the other. She has an interest in, the types of therapies and treatment services that we offer, etc. The woo-woo stuff. She's into that. She's well-schooled. She's well-read, and she understands. She's on top of her life. And so it was really amazing to witness this woman just giggling like it was, and beaming like it was Christmas morning or her birthday or something, that these guys, that we're out there scooping poop and, doing all the daily living stuff that happens when you own large animals like that. We're out there doing the care, and the day-to-day grind. And here's this woman reminding us that this is an amazing experience. It reminds me of perhaps how people might have felt that were in the inner circle for Michael Jackson or Lady Diana, perhaps, that level of just witness to something miraculous. These horses, I kind of view them like rock stars. They're that magical to me. I've seen them, just really create those amazing situations. So they, to me, have the same type of vibe as like a Michael Jackson and a Princess Diana. I would think about that kind of reverence. And here's this woman showing that, and it gave me an opportunity to be humbled and to remember that there is always somebody who's doing better than us, absolutely, and that has more stuff, more opportunity, and more wish fulfillment. However, there's always someone that has less, and I don't mean that in a comparative study way, as in it's not fair, etc. I mean that just to put into perspective that helps me stay in check with, so I don't have some of the things that are on my, checklist of what I'm working on next, etc. However, what I do have is a very connected relationship with 4 horses that are a stable foundation in my life, and the people that I work with on the farm, my friend that owns the place, these are all very solid things. And when I took in the totality of just watching her help to open a whole doorway into the remembrance and into that state of gratitude, that was amazing, and I love it. And it helped to create, if you're familiar with Abraham Hicks' material, she talks about the rampages of appreciation, and that's how we can get one started, is to witness other people's joy, and instead of being jealous or something like that, we can witness another person's joy and say, oh my goodness, that is so fantastic. I wonder what I can do to experience that right here in this moment also. And by experiencing that with her, it opened up the door to remember all these other things, and then that rampage of appreciation is easier. It just tumbles right out, like a waterfall, because, oh my goodness, that's right, I am grateful. I have not just one horse friend, I have 4, and I have my friend that owns this place, and I have, a beautiful place that I can hang out and do my work. This is a wonderful thing. So many things to be grateful for just by watching and participating in witnessing and sharing the appreciation of another person for her gratitude. Something that we take for granted, as being no big deal, that's a really big deal to somebody else. It really is. And again, I don't ever like to go into that comparison where I'm looking at whether I'm doing better or worse. It's a matter of when I'm feeling a little humble check, that's when I look into my inventory and say, I have many, many, many things to be grateful for. Proactively moving in that department to stay relevant with what's important to me. However, today was brought right to me that this is a beautiful woman having a beautiful experience, and the horses were really just moving so kindly and so gentlemanly. You know, it was nice to witness. Sometimes it's a little more abrupt and, you know, gets feelings hurt, etc. But this was just a reminder call of, wow, that's right. Not only can I celebrate her victory of congratulations, you know, you've been in the presence of a horse like you've always wanted to. This is fantastic. Congratulations. Not only do we get to see that, but I get to go on my own journey as well with, oh my gosh, that reminds me of when I had that experience myself, and all of the things that happened as a result of that, and all of the joyful, you know, events that followed. Those are ways that we can build in little hashtags and little handles to grab for later of how we can anchor back into, man, that's a sweet place. That's a sweet remembrance. That's a real sweet and comforting, soothing memory. I think I want to anchor that one in and really breathe it in and experience that again and again and again. It's like an everlasting gobstopper, you know, of good memory that you just go and, you know, bring it up and lick it a few times and go, yeah, that is pretty sweet. I really enjoy that. That's lovely. So anyway, I hope, wow, $3.77 for gas. You're coming down. It was $4.59 when I bought it yesterday. Damn. Wish I needed gas today. But anyway, I hope that you're enjoying your day no matter what part of the day you're in, and remember to get within your skin, because your divine is absolutely gorgeous and totally fine. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you again next time, my friends. Bye-bye. Mwah.